Editing spreadsheets. First of all, you need to copy in some work to edit into a spreadsheet. We're going to look at some formulas, minimum, maximum and average. So you look at the sigma button on the toolbar, and when you click on the little, so that's the sum, that will add things up. But when you click on the little drop box to the right of that, you'll get sum, average, and it's the most popular 5 formulas that you might use. So here obviously you've got minimum, maximum and average that you can use to calculate your formulas. And you can see that the answer was 29. And then we can copy the format from the cell before so that it's the same size, or formatting, same size, same boldness, italics, whatever you've got, whatever formatting, it's copied there. And then we can actually fill that cell down by using the autofill. So it's that little box on the bottom right hand corner, click and drag that down, and we've carried the formula down the cells. You can also put the minimum, maximum and average on rows and columns. So we put it across a row before, and now you can see that we're putting it in columns. And it depends on what you want to know the minimum, maximum or average for, where you would put the formula. So you can see the first time we put the minimum in for Jack, it was on his marks, and this time the minimum is across board for all the different subject areas or curriculum areas. So it depends on what you want, where you put the actual formulas. Now you can see that we're putting in the formula for maximum for mathematics. And again, we've auto-filled that formula across all the columns. And finally, we've done the same for average. We've put in the name of the row, average. We're selecting the formula from the drop box, and then of course we're just making sure that we're only taking on the cells required for the average, and then we're changing the format or auto formatting and filling that across. Then we've created a total column, and we use the sigma key, which is just clicking on that button, and that adds up that row, and then we auto filled it down. Now I'm going to show you how by not putting in a formula that you can actually wreck a spreadsheet. Anyway, we've typed in 500, 500 being that there were 5 subjects at 100 each, so the total would be 500. So for example, Jack got 280 out of 500. Next, I'm going to show you how you can create a percentage. So we take Jack's total, and then we divide it by the full total of what he could have possibly got, and that will give you a number. So 0.56, so select that and choose percentage, and Jack's average is 56%. Now you can see if you autofill this down, it doesn't work properly. See the divide by 0, it's got an exclamation mark. That means this formula did not work. What that means is that we have to create an absolute formula so that the formula relates to one cell all the time, I3, which has the number 500 in it at the present time. So we have to make the formula go to H3, which is the total, Jack's total, divided by I3 all the time, no matter if we fill that cell down. So we put a $ before the I and before the 3 to make it an absolute formula. So if we inserted a column and had another subject placed in our spreadsheet, we would find that that 500 that we've put in will not work very well in calculating formulas. It will need to be a formula as opposed to just a number. So we're just filling in each of the people's marks here, and you can see that the formula updates straight away. However, it's incorrect because it's still not taking into consideration that these are out of 600 now, not 500. So we could actually type in 600, but this is an incorrect way to do a spreadsheet, because when you're updating, it doesn't take into consideration that things might change. So the formula is still correct and works for you, but the 600 is not. So it's better off having that as a formula. So to put in a formula that will add up or count the number of times that we have a subject in there, we go to the formula bar, and which is the sigma, the drop box next to the sigma, and then we look for the count menu. And you can see in this case that it counted 6, which is correct because there were 6 items there. So we times it by 100 because it was each one was out of 100, and we get the formula 600 because we have created that formula. Well, 600 is the result of the formula. So you can see if we add another column, biology, another subject, and you can see that the percent is changing, but at this stage the 600 has not changed. So we need to fix that formula up too. We'll just keep filling in each of the students' numbers here so that we can populate the spreadsheet, and then we need to go and correct that formula. And you can see that it goes C3 to H3, and we actually want it through to I. So we need to change that formula. And by clicking in there, you can see that the formula just needs to be dragged across. And that's correct, and now everything is updated appropriately. Now we're going to create a couple of graphs. So we need to choose what we want to create the graph with. And so we're just selecting the students who did mathematics and creating a graph or a chart, whatever you want to call them, out of this information. So there is a charts menu, or there's a charts button to get the menu bar. So you can choose either of them to create a chart. And there's a nice simple chart, but it doesn't tell us a lot of information at this stage. You can see that the heading is maths, the legend is maths, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do they mean? So they're the sorts of things that we actually have to go in and correct to make meaning from our charts. First of all, it's quite easy to delete a legend. All you have to do is select it and delete it. So that's gone because that legend was quite inappropriate. Then if you go to the chart layout menu, there are lots more options for you. So you can go no chart title, or you can actually place the title in a specific spot. Then you can actually go in and have your axes titled, or you can just choose not to, and the same with the vertical ones. Then if you go to the chart title, you can go down to source data, and then you can manipulate your chart from there. So you can see your series was maths, or you can change that. You can switch rows, columns, so it might be more appropriate for you depending on what you've chosen. And obviously the legend here is incorrect. Series 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't mean anything to you. So you need to go to the chart menu, down to source data, and fix up those series. So you could just click on the name, click on the little box to the right of it, and you just choose what it is that you want to have in that series. So you can see that we've got Green and Fellows, and we're just manipulating the legend here to go with the student surnames so that it actually has meaning. You need your charts to have meaning, otherwise they're useless. So you can see that's quite easily done, and we've just got black to go, and then you'll see that the chart, once we've got the legend back on, will actually have some meaning. So we've got to put the legend on. Back in the charts menu, chart layout menu, and then on to legends, and then you choose legend, and we're choosing legend at the right, but you can choose whatever. So that actually now has some meaning. It's not a brilliant chart, but it has meaning. So you can see it's quite easy to put a chart title into your chart by clicking on the chart title menu and then choosing a chart title, and you just double click or click and drag across the words to type in your new menu. And so here we've got maths results for this particular menu. Next, you might want to add labels to the axes. So if you go to data labels, you can see that we've put in the mark out of 100, so I guess it's a percentage really, to all the labels, the columns, so it just gives a little bit more meaning to the chart. Of course, if you select the correct information first off, making a chart is so much easier because when you put it together, it's already got making sense, except in this case, we've got series 1. We just delete that because that label wasn't telling us much. So if you want to actually manipulate the colours and what things look like, by selecting the columns by individually, you have to double click on them, but to get them all, you singly click on them, right mouse click, and then you can actually format the data point, and you can change the fill colour, the lines around the outside, etc., to keep manipulating your chart. Next, we're going to look at a different type of chart, and we're going to look at Jack Green's different results for across all his subjects, and we're using a pie chart. So you can see we've got a pie chart with different colours, and our series says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not a lot of meaning. If you select correctly, such as the legends and the name, and choose pie chart, you'll find that you get a pie chart that does have a lot of meaning. So there's a legend with all the names that correspond with the coloured piece of pie in your pie chart. And of course you can manipulate your pie chart by selecting the individual piece of pie and changing the colour if that's what you want. You can do that across the whole chart. Of course you can add data labels to the pie charts as well, but you don't actually have to have them inside each segment. You can have them outside. You can do a variety of things with that. So you just need to manipulate and play with everything. Of course you can make your pie chart segregated so each piece of pie isn't joining. Again, just play. You can change each column. You don't actually have to have colour. You can change the gradient so that it can look with different colours. You can change, add a picture to that, and there's a variety of standard ones, or alternatively you can go with a pattern and you can colour that pattern too if you want. So there's just a few other things that you can do with your columns. You don't actually have to have what's going, and so you can see they've all been manipulated slightly. Of course you don't have to have a column or a pie. You can actually change the different types of charts that you have, and this is just an example of a cylinder chart. You do need to be aware of what you choose to create your chart, and if you select the wrong things, your chart isn't going to look so good. So here's an example of choosing all the categories of the subjects plus the total. Now this again is not a very good chart because we've got total compared to individual scores, and it's not giving an instant visual information about what you're trying to display. So therefore this is not a good example of a chart. Sometimes you might need to create a chart that has two columns that aren't next to each other that you want to compare. So you need to check how to do this on your own computer, is selecting two columns that are not next to each other. It depends on what computer you have, on what the combination is. So it's usually a combination of two keystrokes. So just do a Google search for that, and you can see here it's selected the names of the people and the results for PDHPE. So that's selecting columns that aren't next to each other. You do have to format your spreadsheet, and so there are a variety of things that you can do. You can centre align text across multiple cells. You can bold, you can italic, you can change the font, you can change the size, you can change it to word art. So there's a whole variety of things that you can do, change the colour, etc., that you should be able to do. You might shade it, you might put borders on, etc. You can also go to format down to cells and put in borders and shading, and that's another thing that you might use to manipulate your text. You can wrap text, you can merge cells, you can change the way the text is written in a text box. So They're just a whole pile of different alternatives that you can use looking at format cell. So you can line your text vertically and horizontally, so that's always a handy thing to do within each cell. You can go back to number and change the type of number that you've got displayed, so it might be a percentage or a currency or all these different things. So you need to be aware of what's there and choose appropriately. If you go back to format cells and alignment, you can wrap text, and that can make words go on to the next line, and then you might centre it just to make it look better, but that's also a helpful tip. You might want to put in some conditional formatting to let the spreadsheet tell you the story of what's happening within your students' results. So if you go to conditional formatting, and then there you can actually tell the spreadsheet to indicate if students are above a certain amount or less than a certain amount. So for example here for less than, we're just saying less than 50%, and we want it to show red with red writing, and you will see that when we select that and put in the conditional formatting, those students will be shown. So we just put in the 50% there and less than 50, and then you can see that conditional formatting has happened and that the students that are less than 50% are showing, which is a very, very good tool to give an instant image of what's happening in your class. Of course, you can do this for the high achieving students too. So again, you choose conditional formatting and then greater than, and then choose the amount that you want to see how well they're doing. So we've got 75%, but we do have to change what the cell looks like. We don't want to have it the same. And so you can see the students that are achieving well and that those that aren't achieving so well, and this is conditional formatting. Now you do have to show the formulas and paste this into your e-portfolio. So it's different for Macintoshes and for PCs, so I suggest you look up how to do this, and once you've put the show formulas in, take a screenshot and add that to your e-portfolio.